Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? Welcome to Austin on Chain. I feel like we need to hear a GM. It's GM somewhere. Can I get a GM, friends? Well, before we get started, I do want to thank some people in the DAO. Like Mason said, this is something we've been working on for months. And our partnerships, marketing, and promotions teams really came through for us. So big round of applause for the ATX DAO team who were able to put this together. So tonight, we have some amazing speakers that have traveled a little ways for us, and some are local. We're going to dig into this idea that we talk about called a DAO, right? DAO, Web3, NFTs, all of the stuff that we're excited about. We've been hearing about it all week during South by. We're going to hear what it means to start a DAO. We're going to dig into some of the questions about what is a DAO. And without further ado, I want to welcome our speakers to the stage. All right. You guys ready to talk DAOs?
Yeah.
Let's talk about DAOs. So my name is Nick Casares. I'm an ATX DAO member. I'm also head of product at PolyintX. We're building an NFT reward platform. But that's all you need to know about me. This is about the people on stage who are going to teach us a little bit about DAOs tonight. So I'd like to go down the line and let people just introduce themselves. Tell us your name, where you're from, and tell us a little bit about the project that you're working on.
All right, awesome. Hey everyone, my name is Sydney Lai. I'm based in Brooklyn. I'm the summoner from Meta Gamma Delta. It is a internet meme sorority, and we're really focused on bringing two things. Number one, women into Web3 careers. Yeah, ladies. And then number two is funding these projects for those who are building, because they got some crazy ass ideas. So.
Preach.
Preach.
My name is LauraJ. Oh boy. I am Puerto Rican, Colombian, grew up in Egypt. Feedback. Where's the feedback? Is this good? Okay. All right, okay. My name's LauraJ. I'm Puerto Rican, Colombian, grew up in Egypt, currently living in LA. I am a contributing member of FWB, mostly involved in product and their hackathon, trying to find more ways to bring the community into our output. I am also a founding member of Unicorn DAO and run product design, I know, and run product design at Upshot, along with some fun advising at the intersection of culture and crypto. But FWB's purpose and ethos is just to be an amazing space online where we can come together, learn together, build together, create benefits for the community from the community, and was really maybe one of the first experiments in social DAOs in the space, and it's been amazing to see it grow.
Amazing.
So here we are.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, my name is Zakk. I actually just moved to Austin here a couple months ago, so I'm now based here. Yep, I'm part of the Great Migration. I guess the options were between Miami and Austin, but because I work in Ethereum, I had to move here. If I were more of a Bitcoin person, I would have moved there. I co-founded a DAO called Cabin. We are building a decentralized city, starting with about 50 acres, 45 minutes west of here, out in the Texas Hill Country. We've been, for the last year, running a series of residency programs, retreats, different things like that, different programming for the DAO ecosystem as we build up that property and explore what it would look like to build out a full network of neighborhoods in a city, if you will, that are spread out all over the world.
Welcome everyone, my name is Roberto Talamas. During the day, I lead the data science team at Missouri, and at night, I am one of the co-founders of ATXDAO. As you all probably know now, ATXDAO is a city DAO, and what we're trying to get to here is just push Austin towards becoming one of the greatest Web3 cities in the country. So we're trying to tackle that from a community perspective, from a political perspective, from a diversity perspective, just trying to make the whole city very inclusive with this crypto industry and just accept it as a whole.
Fantastic. So I promised you all that I wasn't going to ask hard questions, and I promise that I won't. I might pick on you a little bit. Sydney, how do you describe a DAO? How would you explain a DAO to somebody who's new to this space?
So I think one of the ways that we as a DAO like to describe our DAO, louder, like
Louder!
put it inside my mouth. All right. So I'm making out with the microphone now. And the way we like to describe our DAO is the approach that we used was a sorority and fraternity format. I don't know who of you, who was a part of Greek life back in the day? One person, two people? I think you guys raise your hands. Don't be shy. The reason is because with those who are part of Greek life, you actually understand how to coordinate a DAO. A DAO essentially is an organization of friends, of communities, of families. And the idea is that, like a Greek life, they pay membership to participate. And there's actually incentives and mechanisms to get them to contribute generations and generations long after that chapter or class is gone. So the way I personally describe a DAO is an organization of family members, of friends, who are incentivized to co-create and co-contribute.
Love it. Zakk, what would you add to that description?
Yeah, I have spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I actually have a whole framework that I can drop right here for things that I think are necessary but not necessarily sufficient to call yourself a DAO. The acronym that I use for this framework is MOOCT. Another one that would work is doomed, but probably not a great vibe to say that in order to be a DAO, you have to be doomed. MOOCT stands for, let's see if I can actually rattle it off here. The first one is, oh man, I just came up with this morning and now I've totally blanked. This is great. Members? No, not members. Anyway, this is great. Somebody record this and post this on Twitter. I'll be really embarrassed later. Okay, so one of the
We're still figuring DAOs out.
Yeah, we're still figuring DAOs out. I'm still figuring out memory, right? So ownership is one thing. I think open source is another thing. Community is another thing. I would define DAOs as an ecosystem. Another take that I've seen a lot on Twitter is defining DAOs as a marketplace. I would determine that as, or define that as substantially different from an ecosystem, and really DAOs are an ecosystem. And then the last thing that I would say is really important to really call yourself a DAO is being diverse. I think in order for your DAO to be sustainable long term, in order for it to be resilient and stable, it actually has to be diverse. And whereas traditional organizations don't have that kind of imperative to be diverse, DAOs actually do.
So I'm curious, Laura, with what these two just said, in terms of how you describe a DAO and what might be different from other types of social organizations, how do you explain and how do you incentivize people to want to become part of this when it feels like there's a learning curve, it's a little bit hard to understand how to join, you know, what do I do once I'm part of the DAO? So how do you make this approachable for people?
Are we talking about FWB specifically, or?
Yeah, in your case.
All right. So FWB's ethos is that it is a community-owned community. So we're all members, we're all contributors, and we're there to create value for each other by contributing whatever we have to give. So the whole membership process is very much it's very antiquated right now. It's you just send in your application, the community reviews it, the community decides the community, and then once you're in, it's very much you have the keys to the castle and just dive in. Right now, the process is you are accepted and you're kind of thrown into a Discord server with a bunch of these different channels that are broken into different interests and different communities, sub-micro communities within FWB. And you usually find that members have 2 or 3 channels that they're really, really active in and have no idea what's going on in the rest of the DAO. And the in-person events are where people can come together and cross-pollinate and get to learn about what's happening in other sectors of the DAO. We have a really awesome team that puts together the TLDR every week. It's a weekly digest of what happened in the Discord and what happened in in-person events. So I think that's a great resource for people to get a sense of what's going on beyond just the titles of the different channels, but more what are people creating and showing where people could get involved. We're working on different ways of on-ramping community members into the output and into the creation of the DAO, and I think that's been the most exciting part of FWB by far.
Sydney, it sounded like maybe you were going to chime in terms of orientation.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's actually a really good idea. And I think as the audience is learning from the DAO coordinators. Like there's a lot we can learn from that, and I definitely will take a note of that. So for those who aren't paying attention, that was a good idea. I think because you have to consolidate a lot of decentralized information, and so like if you think about like a town square back in the day, the town square was the central place to gather and to like distribute consolidated information for all the other citizens in the town. So what you're doing with this digest, we have so many discords. We're like 100+ discords, right? But if you have that digest, you have that town square, then you're able to consolidate awkwardly, but to a decentralized population. So I love that idea. Yeah.
I love that you use the metaphor of town square. We actually have a category of channels in our cabin Discord called Town Square. Yeah.
So we have this idea of a new type of social organization that is all about contribution and kind of paying it forward into the community. And we have some ideas about how we can change the way we collaborate, maybe through a town square type approach. It's easy for people to plug into the areas where they're interested. One of the criticisms that's floating out there about DAOs is that there isn't tooling or there aren't processes. It's difficult to manage what we actually want to get done. For instance, this event took hundreds, if not thousands of hours to coordinate, dozens of conversations, tons of people involved, and that there are some logistical challenges to that. So any thoughts from the entire panel here on what are the big challenges that we need to solve to be able to make DAOs more efficient and to get to our goals more quickly?
Yeah, I actually, this is maybe a little bit of a hot take, but I don't think that DAOs will really be all that different from traditional large organizations. I just think that there will be a couple of differences that are really substantial. So I think that like whatever works for a large organization that you're from is probably a pretty effective way of decentralizing your DAO. You just want to do so in a more like token-based voting or delegated model, right? Where there's accountability to the community, where there's like oversight from the community, et cetera. So we use squads. Another term that people in the DAO space are using is pods, but the idea is basically just like a 2-pizza team, like from Amazon, that is delegated some goal and some budget to then go and accomplish a task and report back regularly to the rest of the organization.
Awesome.
Yeah, we have
sorry. Quick interruption. People are asking us just to keep the mic really close so they can hear us. So
Put it inside of your mouth.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
It's a rock and roll show.
We have quite a similar approach in FWB in that we have like different departments and different, we like to call them cities within the world of FWB. We have the events committee, we have the city committee, we have the NFT committee, we have the product department. And all of those teams are responsible for building inside themselves and nurturing and growing and finding different ways to call in the community. Something that we've been playing around, especially around the product side, is like, how do you solve for calling a community into product output when there's such a high standard or like level of quality that you need to like ensure for what you're putting out, right? What we came to was the idea of this like more inclusive hackathon where teams of like community members can come together, hack on ideas, and then have the community vote on ideas that they want integrated into the community. And then FWB sponsors that idea and that creation and like brings that to life with a team. That's been a really wonderful way. I think there's also...
So to touch on that, you're using the community as a filter for the quality of work.
Yeah.
The community is setting the bar, the community is maintaining the bar. I love that, yeah.
The community maintains the bar. I think the missing link here is like reputation and quality control in terms of contributor. Like I would love to be able to like double click into a contributor and see what different projects they've worked on across different DAOs, like what their strengths have been, what their weaknesses have been, and like so that it doesn't just become like emergent community members being the ones running everything, because that ends up being the same voices every time, people that are used to taking control and leadership. The loudest voice in the room isn't always the most talented. So we're definitely thinking about trying to find ways to tap into the talent that isn't the loudest in the community and create spaces that feel comfortable and exciting to tap into.
A couple things that I'll add too. I think that bundles really nicely in like DAO tooling. And to give you guys a very clear example of what happened here, when we were putting this thing together, sponsors, shout out to our sponsors by the way, they are crypto native companies and they give us crypto as a sponsorship money. But the ranch and everyone else and everything else that we need to pay has to be paid in US dollars. And that's just one of those things that we're so early in this whole DAO ecosystem that we're seeing the pain points of not having the tools that you need to run a very efficient organization. So DAO tooling is one. The second one is, and some of the panelists have touched on this, is the organization component of a DAO. Now you have people that are distributed all over the world and have a shared bank account. And these can be thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. So organizing everyone to work efficiently and having a very clear balance of what decisions need to be centralized and what decisions need to be more decentralized and the community needs to agree on is one balance that every single DAO has to hit right now, and it's something that I imagine all of us are experiencing right now. And hopefully, I imagine we're going to get to it where it's going to be very efficient, but right now we're in the situation where it's new, it's exciting, and we're figuring it out.
That's great, yeah. And I want to come back to this in 1 second, but quick public announcement. For anybody at the back of the room who's having conversations, we love that. We want you to do that, but it's really distracting. So if you can take it to the other room, we'd appreciate it.
All right. When I say clap once, you guys have to clap, all right? Okay. All right. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. People in the back, move the fuck out. Like, go that way. There is a funnel, and you will funnel that way, because people on their butts, they want to hear, I don't know, words. So, like, just keep moving, you're doing great. If you're standing, your mouth is closed, keep going. You're welcome. I got you, studious people.
Unless you're standing
Unless
and
if you're listening. If you're hitting on
we're
someone, I
kissing,
get it. Keep
stay.
going, girl.
So even DAOs have some rules. But let's actually dig into that for a minute. So what you're all talking about, you're talking about creating structures to get things done, right? And I think one of the interesting things about DAOs is they're kind of flat. They're kind of, at least on the outset, anybody can join, if they want to contribute. And so coming into a DAO where you might be expecting kind of a flat structure, and then kind of, the organizers or the lead organizers or the founders putting structure on top of that, is that tension or is that a bar to participation? And how do we balance that and keep it inclusive?
I think we're in an era where we're building like scaffolding for things to become more decentralized. And right now, it's the job of like the founding team to set the tone for how this DAO outputs and how we operate. And then to build the infrastructure so that they're replaceable and like they're not necessarily the linchpin to getting everything done. And I think once we can get to a point where like you could switch any member of DAO leadership out and it still runs well, we're in a perfect place. And I think everyone should be moving towards that. But how that works and like how we get there is still such a black box, such a mystery, and I think we're all going at it in different ways. A lot of it through our different governance structures. And I think there's going to be a little bit of awkwardness, a little bit of like a little awkwardness in the giving up the ownership of that leadership in a DAO and trusting that this community is robust enough and aligned enough to pick up the baton and keep moving it forward.
And ultimately, I think in that, it's acknowledging that the community is going to own the vision.
Yes.
So even if the founders start with the vision, that vision will change based on the community, and it's the communities to carry forward.
For the communities to go forward, and the only way that you can like direct that direction is in that scaffolding, in those guardrails, in how you set up contributor to leader, whatever. Like that's where you have a little bit of control right now, and that's totally fine. But I think we need to remember that the focus should be on that, is like building that infrastructure for decentralization instead of just fully jumping in right now, because like that doesn't quite work.
I think the other side of this is actually just like the human psychology component, which you're also kind of touching on here. It's like a lot of it is just like understanding what the expectations are when you join and are participating in a DAO. Like earlier this week, somebody DM'd me and asked me permission to do something as the co-founder of Cabin. And my response was like, why are you asking me? Like, go talk to that team and like, I don't know, make the proposal yourself.
Make a proposal.
Right, exactly, right? Like, I'm not gonna say yes or no here. That's not my job. Like, I'm not local to this problem. Like, I actually don't have the right information to make a decision here.
I think one of the biggest problems though is people don't know what capital is at their disposal.
Yeah.
I think we could do a better job as DAOs, like breaking up the treasury and showing like have the community vote on like what is allocated where, and create those buckets so that community members, no matter what level they are in the DAO, see like, okay, that's put aside for events, and that's put aside for IRL events, and I want to do something, and I know that that's my budget. So I'm going to propose within that budget, because otherwise you're like, I don't know what I'm working with. I don't know if I'm crippling the DAO by doing this. I don't know if I'm not going high enough. So maybe that's one of the biggest barriers right now is we don't have much visibility into what's at our disposal.
Yep.
I'd like to share something. So the question was like, how do you still create a flat structure, even though you start to see leads, VP of whatever, these emerging hierarchies? So I'll give like 2 case studies. So within Meta Gamma Delta, one of the things that we do is just we have committee members, right? Because the whole idea of traditional titles is to showcase 2 things. Who is your boss? And number 2, what are you responsible for? So within our DAO, you are this community member, you are this committee member, you are this committee member, because what we're doing is we're running a home. We are running a home together. So you're doing the laundry, you're doing, I don't know what else is a part of a home, but there's laundry, cooking, there's a list of chores, and it's like, everyone is responsible. We don't want too many chefs in the kitchen. So everyone needs to be responsible for X, Y, and Z for this home or this Burning Man camp to work. You know what I'm saying? So like, but it's not about like, oh, you are the lead of this. And so once you reinforce culturally as a DAO, that like you are either a core contributor, etc., and you are a part of this responsibility, then what we are able to create within our own DAO isn't a focus on hierarchy or title. It's more focused on like, this is what your responsibility is today, as an example.
And I think setting that cultural tone is so critical to getting it right. Regardless of what your DAO is trying to do or the structure that you're trying to create to get things done, like it comes down to personal empowerment. You know, what does the person in the community think is the right thing to do based on the community values? I think that's so critical.
This might be a hot take, but I think everyone's basically saying the same thing. But I believe that the most successful DAOs will have some sort of hierarchy. And the reason why hierarchy is important, shout out to Malcolm Navarro, by the way, for the idea. The reason why you need this hierarchy is because you need a very strong core team that is very much involved in the day-to-day of the DAO that can make the best decisions moving forward. But then, quote, caveat this with, sorry, Sydney, I don't know if you're gonna say something. I'll caveat that with, that's where we go back to that balance of we need to find a way to have what decisions need to be centralized and what decisions need to be more decentralized. And then the people, when you figure out these decisions that need to be centralized, give them to those committees that will make the best decisions for it. So the marketing guys, no one got involved in this whole event. And it was perfect. Like they're running their thing, they know what they need to do, same with membership, same with everyone else. So if you get to that structure where you give them enough independence and you figure out this decision needs to be centralized, this decision needs to be decentralized, then you can grow this thing in a more efficient way.
I'm hearing a theme of empowerment, personal empowerment, committee empowerment, group empowerment. Yeah, I think it's really critical.
I really wanted to dovetail your point. I like to make a little asterisk next to the hierarchy. So oftentimes when we look at hierarchy, it's kind of like a flow chart, right? There's a box on top. Usually it's a dude's name. I'm just kidding. Sorry, ladies. Okay, and then it goes into like a web of other boxes, and then it goes into another web of other boxes. One of the ways we've approached the hierarchy design within a DAO is instead of like a web of boxes that goes into other boxes, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like I'm not crazy. You know what I'm talking about? The box thing with the box in the box, right? Okay. So what we do instead, org chart, the org chart, the Web2 org chart. What we do is we actually do orbits. So it's not about hierarchy, it's you have to center orbit, right? So that's like Earth, if you want to call it. Then you have the second orbit that is closest to Earth, that is Leo, right? And so those are like usually your part-time contributor, maybe they're the ones who's getting grants. You have the third orbit, which is Mio, and then you have like those who maybe like only participate on social media or something like that, and then you have your last orbit, Geo. And so the closer you are to your Earth or your DAO, then you contribute in different levels. You have different levels of incentives. So just something like if a takeaway, think of orbits rather than like the boxes.
Well, and I think that's an interesting way to solve for the inclusivity question, because people can get involved at various levels of commitment or ability. So, final question, because we're going to wrap here soon. I know everybody wants to get to a party soon. You've all been involved with starting a DAO, leading a DAO, making important decisions about a DAO, and this is a big experiment in progress. So from each of you, I'd like to hear what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody who's thinking about starting a DAO in their community?
I would give that person the same advice that I used to give my students back in the day when I was a teacher, which is to just dive in and get started and kind of figure it out as you go. This is a very new space, but it is also a very big space, and it's a space that needs you, and it's a space where you can contribute a lot. So the best thing to do is really just dive in.
I think the best advice that I could possibly give is get aligned on a mission and a vision. Like set out, like have your North Star first and foremost, because if everyone can align on that, then questions around hierarchy and contribution and like all that muddy stuff becomes a lot clearer, because we all know where we're going. And once you have that collective with a North Star, turn it into a DAO, like capitalize it, and then get going. But it's hard to like build the spaceship while you're flying it. That's what a lot of us did and are doing, and I think we can learn from some of the mistakes that we've made in that we need to align and then drive.
I think when it comes to like one advice for DAO and DAO structuring, I'm going to raise a very common question, which is the integration of an NFT or a token within a DAO ecosystem or a DAO itself. Oftentimes, if you don't go the token route, teams will launch NFT collections to essentially token gate or token access it. So like the one advice I want to give away, or like you can kind of share, is for those who are from a large city, think of the taxi medallion, right? So the taxi medallion is actually an NFT itself. Most people think of NFTs as a PFP, et cetera, but the non-fungible token or the taxi medallion gives you the right to hold the token and gives you the right to operate a car to drive your users or participants in that marketplace from point A to point B. It gives the government the right to like take a certain part of money, and then it gives a third player in the ecosystem, such as the taxi company, for you to borrow the cars and also take revenue that way. So you really like when you think of this NFT or this taxi medallion in this case, it still has monetary value, but you just can't go to Whole Foods and like buy your groceries with it, right? So I guess really the advice here is that like as you guys are creating your DAOs and you're thinking about your business models or your monetization, don't just do an NFT drop to do an NFT drop. Just think back to the taxi medallion, essentially, as a really, really good fundamental approach of how to design a utility, a token-gated XYZ NFT for your DAO. So that is a hill I'm going to die on. Thank you.
Love it.
I think the advice that I'll give people that are going to start a DAO is just just start doing it. Get a Discord going, get a snapshot, get a notes to save, but also don't try to grow very fast, because organizing people in small chunks is very challenging. And one situation, I think something that we did, and it turned out to be a good approach, is that we started with 10 people, and then we grew to 20, and then we grew to like 50, and then we grew to 100, because managing 10 people is very different from managing 100 people. In a lot of cases, what DAOs end up doing is that they just do all this marketing to get all these members in. Thousands of people flood into the Discord, super excited to organize, and it's really hard to organize thousands and thousands of people. So in a matter of weeks, all that euphoria, all that momentum is gone. So if you start slow and then adapt and just grow around your membership and then grow again and grow again and grow again, I think that'll be a more successful way for you to scale your DAO to be something big.
So I'm going to do my best attempt to summarize what was just said. I heard, find your North Star, establish your mission, grow strategically, be smart about that, tokenize thoughtfully, but whatever you do, just get started.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I get a huge round of applause for these people? Thank you so much. Yeah, so We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in about 10 minutes.
All right. Shout out for City Magic. So if you guys want to do like on the ground, in-person DAO events, City Magic, I don't know where Rafi is, but I told her I'll give her a shout out. But I also think it's fucking sick. Like, I do it. Fucking sick. Fucking sick.